To cut a long intro short, I found a used copy of Soul Silver at my dear local GameStop. It was cheap, so I bought it with my own money and went home to play it. Usual scenario. When I started to play it though, my little sister kept annoying me, begging for me to let her play it too. I told her I would let her play it later, and she pouted as expected, but didn't argue anymore. I started the game up, and everything seemed fine and dandy. That is until the title screen visualized. It was solid black with the white words, "Love Lost." I was a bit disappointed that this was a hacked game, as I thought I really had gotten away with getting a cheap Pokemon game. Since I had it though, I thought I may as well play it, so I casually selected Start. When the game started up, it took me straight to the screen where you choose your trainer's gender. Instead of a trainer sprite though, there was an Espeon sprite for the male, and a Glaceon for the female. I thought for a bit and decided to choose the Espeon. When it asked me what I would like to name my trainer, I noticed there was only one suggested name, Love. I decided I may as well choose the name. The game started up, and who would have guessed that my trainer sprite was an Espeon. Instead of pink, he was dark grey and his eyes were black. The area I was in was an empty solid grey room. The header for the first area that tells you where you are stated home? Since nothing was in there, I walked out the exit, which led me outside. The header for this place mentioned secluded. It was daytime and grassy outside, with Pokemon and houses scattered about. But there was a 1 tile wide grey path in front of me. I could only walk on this path, and if I tried to walk on the grass, it would act as if a wall was there and wouldn't allow me to. So, with these restrictions, I walked down the path watching other Pokemon and houses go by. Day turned into evening, which melted into night, that dawned into morning and brightened back into day, all in a few seconds. This cycle kept repeating for about a minute as trees started to replace the Pokemon and houses. Eventually, I walked through an invisible door, which was apparently in the middle of the path. I entered a small forest that was all shades of grey and black, titled Dead End? I was now able to freely roam the area, but there wasn't much for me to find. I couldn't go back through the entry I came in through, so I had to keep walking until I triggered an event. After a while, nothing happened, so I thought I may as well check out my Pokemon to see if I had any. When I looked, there was one male Espeon named Love, which I guessed represented the Espeon I was controlling. I selected him to see his stats. His sprite was grey with charcoal coloured eyes and a jewel on his forehead, just like his overworld sprite. His stats were all 1 and he had no moves, or anything else really, so I exited out. After a long time of aimless walking, I eventually found some sort of secret entrance behind one of the trees. It took me to a place that was all black except for a small lake in the middle. The header for this area enlightened with Cure. Curiously, I walked up to the lake and on the other side was a grey Glaceon. I went around the lake and talked to the Glaceon. It turned to me and a text box appeared. ... exclamation point? After a moment, the heart icons popped above both their heads. They both walked north into the darkness and stepped through an invisible doorway. They entered a forest, but this time they weren't grey anymore. They were back to their regular colours, as was the rest of the forest. There was a path again, but this time it was white and not grey. The header informed meaning. They continued walking forward without my control, and the day to night sequence started up again. The trees faded back to Pokemon and houses, and eventually they reached a house at the end of the path, with the time of day stopping at evening. Love turned to the Glaceon, and a sad icon appeared above both their heads. I entered the house, the Glaceon surprisingly not following. When I entered, it seemed like a normal one-room house. Its header read New, which confused me a little. I walked back outside and exited the house. I was surprised to see the landscape had changed. The terrain was rocky, sort of dark, and no other Pokemon or houses were in sight except my own. The header expressed reality. The 1 tile thick grey path was back, and Love's sprite colours were grey and black again. After I walked a few steps, I was a bit startled when the darkness suddenly faded and Pokemon along with all the other houses appeared. After a few more steps though, they disappeared again. This process continued until I made it to another invisible doorway. This time I entered a pitch black room. The header here informed message. I headed east for a few steps to find a pixel-wide blue line cutting through the darkness. On the other side was a normal coloured Glaceon with a pair of dainty angel wings. Once I reached the wall, a text box appeared. Find me. Following which, the Glaceon disappeared. I turned north and encountered an invisible door yet again and entered another area. The header for this section was Dream. It was pitch black as the previous, except with a bit of fog. I walked forward a bit and found an Espeon amidst the fog. It was only an outline of the Pokemon and could be seen through. When I talked to it, a battle immediately started. On the opponent's side, the see-through Espeon's outline represented where the trainer sprite would have been. On my side, Love's grey sprite appeared. Love sent out Former. The see-through Espeon was apparently named Love, and sent out a normal coloured male Espeon named Love. I selected Fight, and was forced to use Struggle since he didn't have any moves. It knocked out the opposing Love in one hit. Apparently it didn't have much HP with Love's attack stat being only 1. Love sent out Becoming. Love sent out a solid black Espeon, with sickly green eyes and drool dripping from his mouth. He also had several holes in his body, as if someone had gone crazy with a cookie cutter and cut out several pieces of him. I selected Fight again, but Becoming was faster, as Love only had 1 in speed. Becoming used Haunt. The screen got darker and then it lit back up again. It didn't seem to do anything that affected Love, as he attacked with Struggle again and knocked Becoming out in one hit as he had with Former. Love sent out Haunt. Instead of sending out another Espeon, it sent out a Glaceon. Her sprite colours were normal, although slightly see-through. She also adorned a pair of feathery wings, with blood laced throughout them, mostly around the beginnings of where they protruded out of her back. I selected Fight again, but Haunt went first. Haunt used Corrupt. Everything went wavy and darkened a little. When light came back, Love's single HP point was knocked down to 0 and he fainted. Love appeared once again on the other side, but did nothing as the screen faded to black, disappearing back into the overworld. The see-through Espeon had disappeared now, so I continued to walk forward. Eventually, I reached a small lake, exactly like the one from before. On the other side was the angel-winged Glaceon from before. I walked around the lake and talked to it. Find me. The text box appeared and immediately afterwards the Glaceon disappeared. I continued to walk north and encountered yet another invisible door. I returned to the rocky terrain as before, except there was no Pokemon or house in sight. The header this time delivered, Break Free. An Espeon with angel wings was standing by directly behind Love, so I turned and talked to it. Another battle started straight afterwards. On the opposing side was the angel-winged Espeon named Love, and on my side was my Love. Instead of calling out a Pokemon though, the angel-winged Espeon just stayed in place. I clicked Fight as all other options were useless. Yet again the offender made the first move. Love used Free. The screen turned solid white, then went back to normal. My Love fainted and the battle ended. Back at the overworld, Love's sprite had grown its own pair of angel wings and turned back to normal colour. I walked forward and for however many times that have been too many to count, passed through one last invisible door. I entered a solid white room, which declared Clarity as its header. I walked forward a bit and saw the Glaceon with angel wings in the midst of all the white and talked to it. Found. The text box appeared again, and the screen immediately cut to black and returned me to the title screen. I pressed start to find my previous save file had been deleted. I turned the game off and went to my little sister's room. I gave her the DS and let her play the game just as she requested earlier. She asked me what the game was like, and I responded with a mysterious, "You'll find out." She scowled at me and I smirked, knowing things like that get on her nerves. I Apparently, she had a different experience when she played the game, so I'm gonna let her make her own addition to this story. Alright, so I started the game and saw its title screen was solid black with white letters, Love Lost. I thought that was weird, but just kept playing the game. I clicked new game since my big sister's old save got deleted. I read her part of this story after I played, so I know what I'm talking about. But anyways, when I started it took me right to the place where I choose my gender. I chose the female Glaceon since I didn't want a male Espeon. Pink doesn't look good on boys. There was one suggested name, Lost. I decided I may as well choose it. I couldn't think of any other names anyway. When it took me to the game, I was in the middle of a one-room house that was grey. The name for the place was Home? My Glaceon was grey and black, and I wondered why, but I thought it was neat that she got to be specially coloured. I walked out of the house and I was in the middle of a forest. The title thing for this place was Isolated. There was a one-space grey path and I was only able to walk on it. The game wouldn't let me walk anywhere else, so I walked down it for a while. And the time of day started changing. It would go from day to afternoon to night to morning, and kept repeating quickly. Eventually, I walked through some door I didn't even see that was on the path, and it took me to a grey and black forest that was called Dead End? I walked all around the forest, but absolutely nothing would happen. I got really bored after a while, but eventually I found a secret invisible door that led me to a place that was pure black and had nothing in it at all, except a little lake. This place was called Cure. I walked up to the lake and saw a grey Espeon on the other side. I walked over to it and talked to it. An ellipses exclamation mark appeared when I talked to the Espeon, and a cute heart icons popped up above their heads, although it did make me sort of sad that only lasted a second. It turned and walked up and went through an invisible doorway. They were in a normal forest, but they were back to their normal colours. The title for this place was Meaning. There was a white path big enough for both of them, and they started walking forward together. The trees at the edge of the path started to go away, and instead Pokemon and houses replaced them. The day to night thing started up again, and eventually they reached a house at the end of the path. They both turned to each other and had sad icons, and the Espeon entered the house, but Lost stayed behind. I went in after the Espeon. When I went through though, there was nobody in there. The title was empty, and it sure was right. I walked around but couldn't find anything, so I went back outside. When I went outside, Lost's fur was grey and black again, and I was in a forest titled Death, which sort of freaked me out. I walked forward. After about 5 steps, the screen flickered, like when your Pokemon has poison. I looked at my Pokemon, and there was a female Glaceon named Lost, and she had the poisoned effect. I exited out and kept walking, hoping to find a Pokemon Center. I walked for a long time though, and didn't find any place to heal at, and eventually Lost ran out of HP, and a text box appeared. Lost moved on. The screen went to black, and when it came back, Lost was standing in a place that was all white. She also had pretty angel wings. The title here said, Longing. I moved around in circles a bit, not quite sure what to do. I walked upwards and went through an invisible doorway. I was in a black room that had nothing in it. This area was oddly message, although all the other titles were weird anyways. I walked to the left to find a blue line in the middle of the place, and a grey Espeon on the other side. When I walked up to it, a text box appeared. Find me. Right after that, Lost disappeared, and I was in another black room. Except there was some fog. This place was Dream, which I suppose made a little more sense than the other one. I walked up a few steps, and then an outline of an Espeon popped up in front of me, then disappeared. I walked up a bit more and then reached a lake like the one where Lost first met that Espeon. The same grey and black Espeon was on the other side, and walked up to Lost and talked to her, and a text box appeared. Find me. The screen went to black, then faded back. My Glaceon was once again in the white room, and it was called Clarity, although I didn't really know what that meant. I walked around a few steps and eventually found an Espeon with angel wings. I talked to it and another text box appeared. Found. The game then cut right to black and then went back to the title screen. So my playthrough wasn't as long as my sister's was, and it didn't save my game either. But I liked playing as the Glaceon, so it didn't matter much to me. Although I do wish there was more to this game, because after you play it the first time, it gets boring. I still liked it though. Although I don't really get what the story was about except that Glaceon and Espeon loved each other and something bad must have happened. My little sister apparently played the role of Glaceon, lost, and her side of the story. I think this game and whatever message it may possibly hold may be translated in many different ways, so I'll leave your conclusions up to yourselves. Thank you for listening to the end. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to click that like button, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and tap the bell icon to make sure you never miss a story.